We will now call the regular meeting of the Lompoc City Council for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Vega?
Here.
Councilmember Cordova?
Present.
Councilmember Ball?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dirk Starbuck?
Present.
Mayor Janelle Osborne?
Here. We will open the floor for oral communication, maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, limited to closed session. If you'd like to come to the podium, you have 3 minutes, or you may call in at 805-875-8201. We have 2 items on closed session. I'll read into the record while we wait to see if anyone comes forward for oral communications. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 parentheses D2, 2 cases. Seeing no one rise and no one call in, we will reconvene to open session at 6:30 p.m. Council for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Vega?
Here.
Councilmember Cordova?
Here.
Councilmember Ball?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dirk Starbuck?
Present.
Mayor Janelle Osborne?
Here. Mr. Malavi, do we have any reportable action from closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. City Council met in closed session to discuss the 2 cases of significant exposure to litigation on the agenda. Council gave direction to staff, but there was no reportable action.
Thank you. I would like to invite Pastor Joy Price forward for our invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Great Creator, who brought the universe into being, we thank you for this day and this community of people. We ask that you give us your wisdom as we lead the city of Lompoc. We ask for your patience as we guide the people, your people, toward what is possible and away from what is not reasonable. In this age of politics, we pray that cool heads prevail, that hearts be generous, that minds seek what is best for all and not for a small few. Whatever the outcome, we know that you will work to bring justice that we require. You will work to bring about the civility that is required, and you will work to show us your example of love, that we might truly learn how to love one another. Dear one, lift up these your leaders in this time of so many trials, and give them your shoulders to lean upon, that they might lead wisely and with a steady hand. We pray that you would show us the way forward to a place of peace, justice, and harmony. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could have representatives from our electric division meet me at the podium. For those of you who don't know, this is Brad Wilkie. He is our interim utility director, and he will be receiving the proclamation for Public Power Week on behalf of the electrical division. Whereas we, the citizens of the city of Lompoc, place a high value on local choice of our community services, and therefore have chosen to operate a community-owned, not-for-profit electric. And as utility customers and owners of our electric utility, have a direct say in utility priorities and policies. And whereas City of Lompoc's electric division provides our homes, businesses, schools, and social services, and local government agencies with reliable, efficient, and safe electricity, employing sound business practices designed to ensure the best possible service at the not-for-profit rates. And whereas the City of Lompoc Electric Division is a valuable community asset that contributes to the well-being of local citizens through energy efficiency, customer service, environmental protection, economic development, and safety awareness. And whereas the City of Lompoc's Electric Division is a dependable and trustworthy institution whose local operation provides many consumer protections and continues to make our community a better place to live and work and contributes to protecting the global environment. And whereas the City of Lompoc Electric Division will continue to work to bring low-cost, safe, reliable electricity to community homes and businesses, just as it has since 1923, the year when the utility was created to serve all the citizens of the City of Lompoc. Now therefore I, Janelle Osborne, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim October 1st through October 7th, 2023 as Public Power Week, and that our community joins hands with more than the 2,000 other public power systems in all of the United States in this celebration of public power, which puts our residents, businesses, and the community before profits. Thank you so very much for the work that you manage and for all of our electric division staff. This is dangerous work. They do it whether it's rain or shine, whether it's everything's safe and routine, or it's a storm and they're now trying to bring our power back up. So we have the advantage of having nearly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, nearly a 60% lower rate than our PG&E neighbors residentially, and nearly a 40% lower rate for our commercial businesses inside the City of Lompoc outside of PG&E. So it benefits us all, and we have a voice, and I just want to say thank you to our electrical division and our workers for doing the hard work.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of items. This is, as Mayor Osborne mentioned, this is a special Public Power Week because of the city's 100th anniversary as a utility. I too would like to thank the men, women of the electric utility, past, present, and future. Without them, we wouldn't have a utility. The electric utility is an excellent spot for having a career, so if you have anybody who's thinking about what to do, sign them up and have them come and apply. Finally, I'd like to mention that the Public Information Officer has done a number of interviews with staff, and those are up on social media for you to take a look at. So thank you very much in the name of the employees of the electric utility. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next presentation is a review of the financial report for animal services and discussion of the phased improvements at the Lompoc shelter. And I will introduce you to our systems analyst, Stephen Valle, to start the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. My name is Stephen. I am an administrative analyst for the City of Lompoc. Today here we also have Sarah Aguilar. She's the Animal Services Director for the Santa Barbara County, and then also Lars Seifert. He's an Environmental Health Services Director for the Santa Barbara County as well. They'll be here to field questions that I might not be able to, or any discussion towards the end of the presentation. But I'm here to give an update on animal services and kind of talk through what's been going on. I know ever since this was brought up back in January of this year, it's been something that we've wanted to review and look at a little closer. So yeah, I'm excited to jump in. And in the audience also we have Ernesto Poblano. He's a new hire who's he's an operations supervisor. So yeah, we're excited to bring you guys some information. So first off, I know we did, or we were requested by council to bring back a survey, or do a survey throughout the county on animal services. So we administered a survey in the past few weeks. It was administered between September 20th and October 1st of this year. It comprised of 13 questions, so there was 4 demographic questions to see who is responding and interested in the topic, 2 prior interaction related, so have respondents used animal services, how familiar they are with the services, and what type. We did a 1 rating scale, so 1 to 5 stars, what would you rate your services or the services that you received. And then 4 open-ended questions, and that's where we really wanted to get in-depth feedback, so we left it open for community members to really talk about, what they think is beneficial from the services, what positive aspects are they getting out of this, and what are some areas where we can improve. And then we also had 2 volunteer opportunity-related questions, so that'll be useful. And we had roughly 30 to 40 respondents that were interested in volunteer opportunities, so that was great. And out of 111 respondents, so we did have 111 respondents, 109 filled out an online form in English, 1 person filled out an online form in Spanish, and there was also 1 person who came into City Hall and filled this out in person. And first off, I wanted to show that there was a 100% completion rate. So everybody who went and clicked on that survey completed it. So nobody looked at it and said, man, this is too much, this is a lot, this is 13 questions, this is, I don't want to go through this. So everybody who did click it was interested in the topic. It was also a 7-minute average completion time, so people took their time and really gave feedback that we used and will highlight in this presentation. The first question, what is your age? Largely, I want to say roughly 50% of respondents were above the age of 55, and over 90% of respondents were above the age of 35. So we did get a few, 9% were 25 to 34 years old, and 1 person was between 18 and 24. Question 2 is, where do you live? So 81% live within the city limits of Lompoc. 18.02% live outside the city limits, but within the Lompoc community, so Mesa Oaks, Vandenberg Village, Mission Hills, and 1 person lived on base. So that was what comprised of who responded to the survey. Question 3 was, how long have you lived in the Lompoc community? And I was interested, I was kind of fascinated. A lot of respondents have lived here for a while. If you look at it, over 90% have lived here past 5 years, or at least 5 years. And then also 61% lived here for over 20 years. So these are people that are vested in the community and, are active community members. Question 4 was, are you a pet owner? 93% said yes, and 6% said no. And question 5 was, have you ever used animal services provided by the county or at the Lompoc Animal Shelter? And about 91% said yes, they have used services. So it was relevant to them. They've had prior interactions, and they know what they're talking to. Question 6 was, which animal services have you used? And only 9% said none of the above. So you're looking at about 90%, over 90% that did say that they've used some animal services in some form, between adoption services, lost and found pet services, licensing and pet registration, and animal control services. Question 7 was the 5-star rating. So what would you rate it between 1 and 5 stars? And there was the majority voted 5 stars. So we had 32%, 36 respondents out of 111, followed by 24% at 4 stars. And then it just keeps going down. So 15% with 3 stars, 14% with 2 stars, and 13% with 1. And that all came out to an average of 3.5 stars out of 5. So question number 8 was the first open-ended question. So please share any positive feedback regarding animal service or experiences with animal services in Lompoc. And I want to make note that the bolded phrases, those are the ones where we had overwhelming responses on. So these are ones that, friendly staff. We had numerous respondents say there was very friendly staff, affordable services, Staff cares about the animals. Lompoc Shelter is a vital resource in the community, and the pet pantry provides crucial assistance for local animal owners. All of those responses were similar in that they were brought up numerous times. These were other ones that stuck out that more people responded to, but not as many as those bolded ones. So after our assistance is effective and very helpful. Over-the-phone communications have improved recently, and ACOs, which are animal control officers, are effective when responsive. And at the bottom, we have a link, so if anybody's online, they can click the link and look through all of the responses. So question 9 was, please share any specific comments or suggestions for improvement regarding the animal services you've used. And the same thing here, the bolded responses were the ones with overwhelming support. So increased availability of Lompoc Shelter and more open hours, and then quicker response to calls for strays and dead animals. The other ones that stuck out and were responded to numerous times were kennels need work, facility needs modernization, easier communication with staff over the phone, more community outreach and training opportunities for new pet owners, more ACOs, animal control officers, patrolling and responding to calls, offer free licensing, more administrative staff, and better wages to incentivize recruits. And here, question 10, what in your opinion are the most critical issues or challenges related to animal services in the city of Lompoc? And same thing here, all the bolded answers were responded to numerous times, they were attested to. So too many strays, surrendered animals, lack of shelter availability and staffing, more animal control officers needed to respond to calls, more education on responsible ownership needed, delayed responses due to staff shortages in all capacities, and more open hours at Lompoc Shelter. And the other ones here we had were, we need more adopters, fosters, and volunteers, too many people surrendering pets, response time to dead animals, and enforcing pet abuse. And these are the critical issues and challenges that the community sees. So out of that, I kind of took out 4 community needs that we see here. So shelter availability, that's overwhelmingly the number one need. 2, code enforcement, ACO responsiveness, and staffing. 3, the new phone system, admin availability issues, so getting a hold of somebody or communications. And then 4, an emphasis on the strays, the COVID-19 impacts, and how many the stray uptick right now, and responsible ownership. So seeing why are we needing the type of services that we need? And addressing those community needs. So code enforcement and ACO responsiveness. Long wait times continue to be addressed. So currently there's 6 animal control officers and no supervisor, and that's been going on for several months. And that's throughout the county. So they are pretty backlogged at some points. And I know they go after anything that's health or safety related first. So that's what's priority is what do we need to go to? You're going to go to an animal bite or a vicious dog over or incident with a vicious dog over a noise complaint or something to that extent. And then filling vacancies. So there's 3 ACO and 1 ACO supervisor is coming. So hopefully we'll have 9 animal control officers and 1 supervisor for that team in the next few months. New phone system and admin issues. So there's a new phone system if you guys aren't aware right now, but it's kind of backlogged just because the offices are still operating at a 40% vacancy, and that's been since late June. So they are operating at a high level of vacancy, and when somebody tries to reach, if there's nobody available, then you're not going to be able to reach somebody. So if somebody reaches out, 12 new hires in the kennels and customer service in August and September. So that's helping out, and it does take time to train and get used to these this field that is pretty specific. Full reopening of Lompoc Shelter will add availability of local services and clarity of what services are available to residents. And that's something I'm going to bring up in the next slide. But there will be a full reopening. And currently there is a limited reopening. I know that the county has tried to test hours and days to see when are they getting the response from the community, when are people coming in, when is the best time for us to be open. So there's going to be a full alignment between the 3 shelters coming soon. And then also the Santa Barbara County Animal Services Advisory Council Stray Animal Task Force. That's something that has been directed from the county, and they are, this task force's main mission or main goal is to figure out why there are so many stray animals right now, there's such an uptick, and what we can do to improve that number. So the phased reopening, this is a timeline that has been updated, so this is current as of this week, on what has been worked on in the past months or throughout this year, and where we're at as far as a phased reopening schedule. So if you look at it, you know, I know the big one here was the reopening date, and that was postponed, or a full reopening, because right now they're in a limited capacity. That was from July to, pushed from July to October, and the big issue there was staffing. So staffing continues to be a roadblock in providing the services that we really need. So new hours are coming October 17th, so that's Tuesday. It's Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's when they will be open, and that's going to be the Lompoc shelter hours. So I know currently it's Friday through Monday from 10 to 7, so they figured 6 to 7 is kind of a dead hour, so let's shorten that up and extend it a day. So yeah, it's back up and opening. And now when we look at the budget at a glance for the animal services, I know, and I included the tobacco settlement revenues just because we do get a portion of that put towards our contract. So about $26,300, if I'm correct. It's on the next slide. But that is what is put towards our contract from the county, and it's, you know, a subsidy that they're providing. And other than that, we were provided the budget from the county's department, and I know it's kind of hard to say, okay, Lompoc pays $50. This is what that $50 goes to, because it's more of a departmental budget, and just they base it all on the department, not really specific to, okay, Lompoc pays, you know, roughly $30,000, however, a year, and that $30,000 is going towards this and that and that and that. I do know that their main goal, or the county's main goal, is to meet a full cost recovery and provide these services. So that is something that did affect our contract and increase the cost, and that'll be on the next slide. So what does Lompoc pay? The current contract, like I said, is based on a per capita charge with a phased approach to full cost recovery. So throughout the contract, the county has agreed to continue providing additional financial support through the tobacco settlement fund, which mitigates some of our annual expense. So that's the $26,300 there. But the general fund support, if you look at the top left, or the top right, but the top left of the chart on top of the slides, it is decreasing every year. So that's a part of what is increasing our contract cost, as well as the annual cost of living, 2.5% increase. The current contract includes animal sheltering services, so veterinary services, customer services, educational services, administrative, and field services as well, so the animal control officers and code enforcement for their codes and ours. Rabies control, vicious and restricted dog hearings, animal license and permitting services. And when you kind of piece it out and look at what the population number, what they used for the past contract renewal in 2022, and the current contract, or what the agreement amounts are going to be these next 5 years, it's, in fiscal year 23, the cost per capita, so per person per year, it's $8.56, and that does move to $10.04 in fiscal year 27. So that's roughly the range that we'll be paying throughout the next 5 years, or the next 4, because we're in fiscal year 24. And here's a comparison. I thought you guys would like this chart to see what other communities are paying. The populations, these are 2021 estimates, so these aren't specifically from the contracts from Goleta, Buellton, Santa Maria, or Solvang. And so, you know, given that, the cost per capita will probably fluctuate depending on the exact population. But this is a comparison of what other communities are paying for services from the county, and you know, as you can see, and I just wanted to show all of these communities here are getting the same services as we do. So, you know, sheltering, field services, rabies control, the vicious and restricted dog hearings, animal license and permitting, and code enforcement. What's that? So what is Lompoc provided from this? I can get the, so we receive quarterly, monthly, and annual reports from the county. The animal intake, so if you look at the total on top, I have that bolded, that's what the total intake, and that's an estimated 4.85 pets enter the Lompoc shelter system per 1,000 residents, compared with the countywide estimate of 2.6 pets per 1,000 residents. So it has been noted that Lompoc, from these estimates, from these reports, we are using more, or our intake per capita is higher than the countywide range, and that is something too. I like when and it might be something better that the county can answer is where what is the Lompoc shelter system, because I know for the past year and a half we haven't had this shelter reopen in a full capacity, or capacity that we did before the pandemic. So that's something that can probably be answered better than what I can provide. But the total has increased. So if you look at from quarter 1, 2022, down to quarter 2, 2023, which ended in June this year, we went from 113 per quarter down to 91 in quarter 4, 2022, and back up to 212 in the past quarter. Now, officer activities. So this refers to service-related calls closed within the city limits. So the largest number of calls are related to stray pets. If you look at that, it was 55 in quarter 2 of 2023. The per capita, Lompoc's estimated to accrue 6.95 calls per 1,000 residents, which is significantly higher than the countywide estimate of 3.6 calls per 1,000 residents. Over the past several years, animal control officer calls within the city of Lompoc are about 15 to 16% of total calls, despite only 9.8% of the county's population residing within the jurisdiction. So it does show that we have higher calls than what our population, or what our share should be in that sense. So when you look at a comparison of the county service communities, animal control officers completed service calls, you can see here this chart gives a total for every city in 2023, and that's as of September 1st. So you can see who's using the most. We have the third most calls. Our total calls, so 120 in 2023, is 17% of their total calls. And I noted a few of the ones that had were a little higher, stood out. So aggressive animals, we have 25 calls this year, which is 24% of the total aggressive animal calls the county had. 18 calls for confiscated animals, 24% of their total. Cruelty and neglect, we had 11 calls, so 15% of the total. Law enforcement assist stood out, so it's only 5 calls, but 38% of their total law enforcement assist calls. Noise and waste complaints, 5 calls, which is 20% of their total, and strays, which is 15 calls at 23%. So now bringing back to the last request, or from the last council meeting regarding animal services. I know we wanted to look at the example RFP that Santa Maria had put out last year. So this is the RFP, or some details on the RFP and the bid for animal services. Bids were requested in August of 2022 for the following. It's animal shelter operations, veterinary services, customer services, educational services, and administrative services. And when we went through the contract, or the bid from Santa Barbara Humane, year 1 operations were going to cost approximately $2 million. And that's without noting that the city of Santa Maria would have absorbed staff costs for animal control officers and partial animal services administration, such as code enforcement. So that's something that, if we were to ever look at something like that, we would, want to know that all of that has to be included, which I believe Santa Maria was looking at taking over a part of their of the services. They would still require a shelter facility and related assets as well. So that's a facility, everything that goes into a shelter. It's a lot of equipment. And the detailed cost proposal is available on page 51 of Santa Barbara Humane's bid package. I have that here. It's kind of hard to read, so I'll have to share. I'll have to share that with the council and get the full bid package if you would like. But I haven't. I just kind of pulled out the big details from this, and to my understanding, Santa Maria did not move forward just because of the cost. So now bringing it back, a progressive path forward. It looks like we're progressing in this area of services in Lompoc. So the reopening of the Lompoc shelter, that's a huge thing. That's what the community wanted and needed, and we're looking to have that in the next week and a half. Recommendations really from staff is to express the needs of the Lompoc shelter to decision makers at the county. Getting some of the work done over there. It's mostly cosmetics. The county, the animal shelter looks, I did a tour of it about a week and a half ago, and it looks good. It's kept up. Volunteerism is a huge part in that. We get a lot of volunteers that go out and help, or Kappa, I know they handle landscaping out there, because at some point, the weeds were taller than I am. So they're, mostly cosmetics. I know pavement's a huge part, and then the kennels also could be addressed. The county animal services have participated in community events, and that's a big part of their program right now, is to have off-site adoption and informational events. And those are all really targeted at increasing awareness of resources, building awareness of licensing and leash laws, connecting pet owners with resources like low-cost, free vaccines and medical care, and really sharing the joy of pet companionship, because that always helps out with with doing this. It's a thing about pet owner, responsible pet ownership, and trying to spur that, or not turning it into I believe from COVID, the animal shelters were emptied, or you probably heard that in the news, and now people start getting back into in-person events and work, and as everything comes back to normal, it affected the animals throughout the county, and I want to say throughout the nation. I don't have facts to back that up though. And they did also get third place in the 2023 Flower Festival Parade, so that was great too. So increasing direct and indirect volunteering. The pet pantry continues to be one of the Lompoc shelter's most used services, and I would urge the community also, if you're ever in need for pet food, or if you're an owner and you really want to, or you really need anything for your pet, reaching out. We have great volunteer groups in town and throughout the community. Kappa, Care for Paws, Canine Pals, and Buns, they assist the county to distribute roughly 2,000 pounds of food each month through the Lompoc shelter. I wasn't able to witness it firsthand, but I was able to witness the food, and it was a lot. So, it's great what they do over there. It's great what community members we have involved in the shelter services. Continue hiring, so that's a big part. I know I attested there's a 40% vacancy rate, so continuing the robust hiring and trying to get qualified candidates and people who are really enthused in this kind of work, I think, is a huge part, and the county's doing their part to continue in hiring some great individuals to help out with the community services. And then also the Santa Barbara County Animal Services Advisory Council Stray Animal Task Force. Say that 5 times fast and you kind of get it. But that's something also that's going to have hopefully some good results. They're looking to identify the causes for the stray uptick and figure out solutions, figure out what we can do as a community to try and bring down those stray numbers, because right now it's going at a rate where it's unsustainable for any community. So city opportunities to assist, and this is what I'm going to end with here. Hosting public clinics for microchipping, vaccinations, and license sales. Appointing staff to serve as a representative on County Animal Services Advisory Council, Stray Animal Task Force. Offering license sales at city offices or service points within the community, placing microchip scanners at city facilities with team members trained to reunite pets and families, amplifying messaging around responsible pet ownership, the importance of licensing and microchipping, and the benefits of direct and indirect volunteering, as well as adopting and fostering. Inviting animal services representatives to regularly provide updates, present, and participate in community meetings such as city council like tonight. And inviting animal services representatives to speak to city employees, local teams, groups that are meeting to share information on, and answer questions about the services. These are all provided from the county in ways that I think we could help with their services or the need in that area. So now from that, that's all I have here as far as the update. But we're open for questions and discussion. Like I said, I can field what I can, and we have Lars, Sarah, and Ernesto here to answer any other questions that I may not, or we can bring back information.
All right, thank you, Stephen, for taking on this project from the prior administrative analyst. I know you had to educate yourself and get up to speed on this, so I appreciate you putting in that extra effort to bring this back to us. Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, one of the things I notice on here says the city of Lompoc pays, and it lists $347,000 a year. That's what we pay, the city does, hence you've listed it as $8.56 per person in the capita for that. What's not included here is what the citizens in Lompoc pay. We'll use license fees, adoption fees, rabies vaccinations, other vaccinations. I don't know if we charge for microchipping, et cetera, but on top of $347,000 that the taxpayers are paying for, how much additional revenue is being generated with these other citizen-paid items?
So I can, if I go back to the budget slide for the county.
It was hard to read that.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. It's kind of thick. I should have expanded that out a little more. So if you look at the total expenditures at the top portion, then you can look at the operating revenues and total revenues. They have that broken down somewhat to the,
I can't.
you can see their charges for services. That's what, $2,700,000 from if my.
Yeah, but this is the whole county. This
is countywide, yes.
Yeah, this does not talk about what the city is doing and people within the city. I mean, I figure that's important enough to be included in this. $347,000 or $30,000 a month is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But when you tag on, which you're saying you're using full cost recovery, et cetera, so the people that are paying for this are also paying an additional fee. Now, I don't know, what's a dog license cost, 60, 70 bucks now? I don't know.
I'm not too sure. Yeah, I might defer. We can also bring
what's
back.
a rabies vaccination cost? You're getting full cost recovery, so you take your puppy in there.
Yeah.
You're not walking in there with 20 bucks and getting it back.
I think that's something I can bring back at a later
It would just be helpful
time.
because this is kind of an illusion of dollar signs here.
Yeah. And I know one thing also that I've seen recently, me and my family, we've actually been looking at adopting and that kind of thing, and where I know the counties is really while they have larger animals and animals that are that might be too much for us, or the ones that have been abused, and those kind of that's kind of the demographic that's worked with there. But there's really good incentives. I know one, I see a husky and I'm like, hey, $20, let's go get let's go get it, over $175 at the Humane Society or elsewhere. So their costs are very very low, I would say, and that was something also found in the survey, was that people think that, or people see that the costs are low. They do have events at certain points. I believe last month or the end of the month it was like $10 or $20 to adopt a dog. They have vaccination clinics. I believe at some points there's free vaccination clinics too. So they are lower cost services than other organizations that do the similar work, or that do similar work. But yeah, I can bring that information back to council.
Councilmember Ball.
So I know you're going to bring a lot of this information back, so I won't go into a lot of detail. Just to comment on Councilmember Starbuck's comment, yes, we're definitely paying a certain amount per month, and there is the added cost of services, getting your rabies vaccine or getting a permit or getting your license per se. But I think all the other cities, Buellton and Santa Maria, they also, in addition to those city-submitted funds, do charge for those things, as far as I understand. Meaning, Santa Maria doesn't give you free licensing, free rabies. I mean, they charge for that as well.
Yes, yes. And something also to that is, you know, in discussing, I mean, it's, we have a Lompoc shelter. That's a big thing. I know that when it was closed down, you know, there was back and forth about, well, we're not getting the sheltering services. Well, we are, but we have to go so far. And, you know, there are other communities that don't have the shelters. So, you know, we're looked at, you know, Lompoc is looked at as one of the three in the county, or run by the county animal services. So, yeah, you are correct that we, you know, all communities have the same costs, and it's issued, like, you know, like I said, per capita, so it's equal in that respect.
And then you'd mentioned that Santa Maria had been curious about saying, hey, maybe we should look at standing up our own operation because we might save money. They found out that probably wasn't going to work out, and I can only surmise that once they figured out, hey, Santa Barbara County's having trouble staffing, we're going to try to step up our own operation, and then we're going to try to pay less maybe to somebody to come work for us. It doesn't add up. It is an expensive service to provide, whether the county's paying, somebody's got to pay for it. And that does lead me back to the issue in Lompoc, and this is where I want to hear from maybe somebody from the advisory council or from the county. If you can go to that one slide that it had the number, you know, it had quarter 1, 2, and 3, 4 from 2022, just the numbers of the services provided.
Services, oh, I think we're going...
One or two back, I think. Yeah, so I'm just looking up here. Maybe go back a little bit further.
Yeah. Are we looking
Go
there?
forward.
Nope.
There's a big jump from quarter. It's in the. There we go, right in here.
Quarter here.
So let's take a look right here.
Okay.
So in quarter 2 of 2022, we got 100 calls, right? 100 calls right there. 2.29 is our average. 1 year later, this is what the county has to deal with. The county didn't necessarily cause this, but this is the challenge. So let's go to quarter 2 in 2023. It goes from 100 to 212 calls. That's crazy. Look at strays. Look at strays. We went from 74 strays to 166. Somebody's got to pay for that. Somebody's got to provide that service. So for me, this is concerning to me because if this is the start of a pattern or a trend, this is overwhelming. We already are, you're saying we have 10% of the population, we have 15 to 16% of the need that the county is providing. Are we headed in the wrong direction with this number? And again, I don't know, but I'm just trying to point out that there's obviously cost associated with this, but the trend isn't going in a really good direction, and that's what worries me more. After 5 years, so again, I'm saying a lot, but maybe you can mention a couple.
You know, I think, and that's the stray issue is you know, I'm no professional, but I believe that is it's an anomaly right now. And you know, personally, just from what I've read on the news, I think, and this is opinion based, but I believe a lot of people went and adopted, and you know, things were closed, there wasn't much to do. You heard that shelters were empty, and then they start, you know, everybody starts getting back to their usual life, and everything kind of comes back, or all of the repercussions. And it's, you know, it's sad that animals, if that's the case, that they had to pay, or that they're paying right now. But I know the county is standing up a task force to try to figure out solutions, or figure out what are the problems, what is causing this in the county, and what solutions we can have. But yeah, that's...
Thank you for that. I just wanted to point out that obviously the cost is going up. It is expensive. But we're showing as a community that the need has grown exponentially almost. So that does concern me, and I'm hopeful that we can hear a lot of ideas that point us in a direction towards a solution.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
I would like to invite Ms. Aguilar up to answer a few of those questions that our staff probably can't answer. So I want to go ahead and get you to the microphone. So many of the posts coming from the County Animal Service in recent months is the overcrowding that you're experiencing and the number of pets that need to be adopted. And I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, several of us took tours of our Lompoc shelter and saw the condition of the kennels. So I know that's part of the issue, is that you, in the past 3 years, haven't utilized the Lompoc kennels, not the shelter itself, as far as front desk and meet and greet and the pantry, but the kennels themselves have been shut down due to their size. They're much smaller than the modern kennels. They are very, very old and have broken edges. Some doors don't function. So as we're trying to move back open, and I see that there's this idea that the kennels are going to reopen, what is that plan and how is it being addressed? Because I know it doesn't solve the problem of additional strays, but it does help you with some of your kennel space if you can get that reopened. So what is that plan? What is needed, and how are you addressing that?
That's a lot.
But that's one of the biggest issues,
Right,
right?
absolutely,
Is the
yes.
loss of the kennels, the actual kennels.
Thank you, Mayor, for asking me up here to speak to that. As a county, we've created a punch list. We're working on kind of what are the top priorities for us to get reopened. We are scheduled to reopen fully in about 2 weeks from today, actually, and be full-time, have animals there full-time, and that includes dogs.
Okay.
We're in a position somewhat intermittently right now where we're housing dogs in crates. And luckily, we've been able to kind of keep up with that, and they don't have to stay there, usually for more than a few hours. And so the condition of the kennels in Lompoc, the majority of them, is far better than a crate. Right? So it makes more sense to, right now, use the ones that are in the best condition, give the animals, the dogs that are staying in them, a better quality of life during their stay with us, while we continue to work on a plan to get them repaired. We're looking at a couple of different things. We're working with Facilities and General Services and also with CAPA, and trying to figure out what is the best approach to take. Do we flatten it? Do we make a new one? Do we use the same footprint? Do we retrofit some things? Do we just make some repairs right now to kind of get us through while we work through all of the larger financial issues and planning and those things? But for right now, the plan is we're going to have dogs there full-time in 2 weeks, and it may not be every kennel. There may be some that we decide, are just too bad or are in need of something.
Okay, so there is an action plan, and
Yes.
and you are looking to utilize it because, as you're right, it's not awful for a dog to spend a few hours in a crate, but it would be a better quality to have a little more space, which the kennels are slightly larger than a crate, so that is helpful. So I appreciate that. So the second thing is so many of our partners are these nonprofits who work so hard to educate the public on good pet ownership and support with food and that sort of thing. Have they provided you any feedback on what they think the uptick in the number of strays are? I know that you're probably trying to identify the reason, but have any of those support services sort of heard why somebody's surrendering an animal to them or discovering strays and that sort of thing? Have you?
Yeah, and many of them have participants in the Stray Task Force.
Okay.
There's been 2 meetings of that. We were looking at heat maps. We're devised. It's a multi-prong approach of things that we're working on. Some of it is marketing and campaigns around responsible pet ownership. We relaunched our Project Pet Safe, which I think went kind of underground maybe like 5 years ago. I don't really know why. But Project Pet Safe is relaunched, which is all of the things around keeping pets safe. It's primarily pet owner resources. So additional vaccine clinics, additional spay and neuter opportunities, additional supplies and resources and training opportunities, and all of the things that help pets be successful with families. So yes, so all of the partners are heavily invested in all of the things and supporting us to try and figure out what we do. It's just, it takes some time
first see that you
Get
have
all
an
of it.
uptick and then
Yeah.
figure out what to do with it. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it is moving forward and that you've identified this pattern and that it's not just you in a vacuum trying to figure it out, that the community is invested in trying to figure this out. I saw one of the posts where somebody came to adopt a dog and one of the nonprofits walked their backyard and helped identify how to improve its security because the dog has a tendency to be an escape artist. So they helped, through the volunteer organization, reinforce some of the areas the dog might escape. So I think it's that kind of thing, right? And so part of me wants to say to the community, if you're a school with an after-school program or a church, maybe invite one of these nonprofits or animal services to come and do something where the community naturally congregates, to have more information shared, where you aren't trying to get a group to come to a location they might not normally go to, but go back into the community, identify where people naturally congregate, and maybe go to them and work with some of our other community partners to have an event. And so again, maybe there's a city hall event where we do an education here. So things like that where we're here, we're going to adjourn and go see the new fire truck. So maybe there's an evening where we adjourn and we go to an animal care clinic kind of thing because we have this crowd here. So think of things like that, I think, is easier than often trying to get our community, which is heavily commuter, to find one more opportunity that's not somewhere they might naturally congregate. So.
Yeah, I will say that the particular post you're talking about in the organization, Jill Anderson from Shadows Fund is here. It was their agency who took upon that task and really, they've got several programs aimed at pet.
Yeah, they've
keeping
taken
pets with
on
families
so
and-
much, so we just want to say thank you to
and
them.
one of
They've
Lompoc's
taken on
own.
a lot. Yeah. Councilmember Ball.
I'll try to be real quick with this, but just since you're here and you're here, something I'd like to bring up is the success of any of this discussion has to do with the strength of partnership. Can we go to the slide that had ways to assist from the city? And I'm so sorry to put you on the spot, but these are some things that have been suggested to council that we might consider in the future as ways to assist. Is there some things that stand out to you here, or?
These are
anything?
items that we're recommending as the county to all of our city partners to say, hey, we're trying to collectively help solve problems, keep pets in families, address the things we're seeing, but also to contain costs in the future. As you mentioned, if this is a trend that continues the way it is for the next 5 years, we're all kind of stuck. So if we can get ahead of this, we're starting to see it 2 quarters. I suspect we'll see something similar in this 3rd quarter of the year. But if we can get ahead of it and we can get it solved now, even flattening it out so it doesn't keep growing, we're going to be in a lot better shape. I certainly don't want to be standing here in another 3.5 years and trying to do contract negotiations and say, hey, P.S., we need $12 million now instead of $6 million to do this job. And I don't think anybody else wants that either. We want to keep pets in their homes. We want to keep pets and people safe. We want to do it all in a way that's affordable, where it's just a win-win for everyone. And as you mentioned, it really is a partnership. And so we're just trying to identify as many ways as possible. These were initial recommendations that we came up with that aren't super time intensive or resource intensive. And I suspect out of the Stray Task Force, we'll come up with several more.
Well, for me personally, there's definitely a couple on here that strike my interest in that maybe there's some mechanism within City Hall with a little bit of our staff to be trained and to be helpful in the bigger picture, search for a solution there. The other thing I just wanted to encourage, however it comes about on your end, at the city, I still encourage this, is that we went through a really rough pandemic, and that really just sliced the whole element of volunteerism, just cut it off at the knees. So it's been really difficult for a lot of entities, private or public, to have their full-powered volunteer mechanism put together. And I just, again, want to encourage that we as a city alone cannot fix this. You as the county alone cannot fix this. It's going to be a lot of nonprofit partnerships and thoughtful conversations. But I strongly encourage for us to continually search for ways to empower volunteers to be a part of an infrastructure that deals with the severity of this issue. So,
I
thank
will
you.
use that as an opportunity to plug that if anybody would like to come and volunteer at the Lompoc Animal Shelter, we're having our first in-person sort of information orientation session on October 19th at 3 p.m. So it's
All
almost
right.
like you knew I wanted to say that.
All right, so I think that is a good note to end this. Seeing no other questions from council, we appreciate the work you've done on it and the continued work you do, and we'll look to see the additional information brought back at a later date.
Thank you very much.
All right. City Manager, your report, Mr. Albro.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Okay, just,
There's an agenda item about microphones not working, so.
I'll just come up here. I first want to say thank you to Sarah. I think she might have left already, but good job of taking charge of the animal control services. Thank you. That's been a big headache, and we're really grateful for what you're doing. I wanted to encourage everybody to get involved and come out for the Christmas parade. That'll be Friday, December 1st, and last date to register for that is November 17th. It'll be fun. Come on out. Also wanted to let everybody know Commutify will be here and helping with home energy assistance. They'll be here October 4th and the 18th. We also encourage everybody to do the local road safety plan survey, which is be on our website till October 11th. And also wanted to update the council. We won't be doing the presentation with the fire engine.
Okay,
We had one that's being bashful, so we're going to bring it back on November 7th. So
all right.
we'll do it then. Thank you.
Okay. Well, stay tuned. If you came only for the fire engine, it's been delayed until the 17th. All right. 7th. November 7th, not October 17th. Okay. November 7th. All right. So next first meeting of the month. All right. Any? Yeah, we can't have it when Dirk's not here. Do we have any questions for a city manager before we move on? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to consent calendar. Consent calendar is item 1 through 5. If you would like to speak on any item on consent calendar, you may either come to the podium and have 3 minutes, or you may call in at 805-875-8201. While we wait to see if anyone rises or calls in for consent calendar, I'll go ahead and read the process into record. All items listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted after one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the council vote. Any items withdrawn from the consent calendar for separate discussion will be addressed immediately before the second oral communication near the end of the meeting. All right, seeing no one rise and no one call in, we will close public comment on consent calendar and bring it back. Is there an item council would like to pull or any questions that don't require pulling? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
All right,
Second.
and Councilmember Cordova seconded. No further discussion, we'll vote. And that passes 5-0. All right. Now we'll move to oral communications. This is for any item that is not on the agenda within the city purvey. If you would like to speak on an item that is not currently on the agenda that you'd like to see the city address, you may come to the microphone. You will have 3 minutes, or you may call in at 805-875-8201. If you're looking to speak on items 6 or 7, those will come later on the agenda. Microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council members, Madam Mayor. My name is Michael Barrier, and I'm here tonight because I love Lompoc. I moved here in the 1980s, did the commute to Goleta thing. Some years later, I ran for city council and did not win, but I was very interested in the wind farm that was at that time being proposed. I also served on the Utility Commission for a number of years here, and about 2008, that prompted me to start a business focused on energy efficiency here in Lompoc as well. And this being the 100th year of the electricity department, I come here today to share an idea, part of a vision for Lompoc that we call, I represent a nonprofit that we call the Lompoc Community Microgrid. We're living in critical times, of course. On the back, there's a little map, weather-related vulnerabilities across the country. I've identified Lompoc in that regard. But what I'd really like to ask is if you could direct staff to assist us in taking a snapshot of energy utilization here in the city of Lompoc toward preparing a feasibility study and coming back with an actual proposal. Over the next 9 months, between now and the end of the year and then the first 6 months of next year, there will be literally hundreds of millions of dollars coming our way for electrifying pretty much the whole country. There's federal agencies involved like the IRS, FHA, HUD, as well as, of course, the Energy Department. There's state agencies involved, Public Utilities Commission, California Energy Commission, the Office of VA. There's a lot going on right now, and this town has always been, as long as I've been involved, and obviously before that, a very pioneering, independent kind of community. And the idea of a Lompoc community microgrid is an idea whose time has truly come. And do you have any questions?
Public comment is not a time for exchange, but
Okay.
if you leave your contact information or email any of us, we can have an exchange.
And I can perhaps get on a later calendar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, if you would like to come and speak on an item that is not on the agenda, you may come to the podium for your 3 minutes, or you may call in at 805-875-8201.
Hello, good evening. My name is Marcia Wirtz, and I'm a Lompoc resident, born and raised here. I just had a couple things to address. Firstly, I would like to just again reiterate from where my residence, where I live in the old part of downtown Lompoc, just an ongoing issue and of an sort of an infrasound, low infrasound vibrational noise that's been going on that I've detected and heard since 2019, and it's been put onto the public record. It's the best way to describe it, and it sounds very man-made, kind of compressor-like. So, and then there's might be some times where it's further in the distance. So that is still an issue. It's ongoing. Secondly, recently, a local person, just someone I met just out and about walking around Lompoc, we were talking recently, and she mentioned that she wanted to come and do public comment, and I said, oh, that would be great, her idea of what she wanted to talk about, and I said, and then after our conversation, she said, well, if you go to the city council meeting, can you bring that up? And so here I am. So, but her comments were like, yeah, the amount of rubbish because she came out here to Lompoc in the 1980s, so the amount of rubbish and trash that she's seeing around town, and I was like, yeah, you're right, there's so much trash, it just seems like there's always just trash or abandoned debris or, things that have been just randomly left all over. And so she had heard, or she knew about decades ago, that the city had some kind of plan or program where residents could work off debts or either bills or indebtedness or debts or put their time and service into community service to reduce their payments or something to that effect, or even using other community groups to do cleanup. And so I said, yes, I'm going to bring that to the attention of the city council. And and thirdly, there's just another small fundraiser that we're doing for the Lompoc Valley Fallen Warriors Memorial Project, which is located up on the hill at Beatty Park. It's a community memorial, so there's just a small little fundraiser that's going on right now that you can go online. This is the flyer for it, and it's just a little scanner QR code. I left a few flyers in the lobby, and it's a See's Candy fundraiser, and this will be, it's a little virtual storefront, and you can, in addition to getting your favorite candies, you can also just order little gift cards and have those sent out to anyone you like as a little, gesture of, so these will be, this little store will be open through December. Oh, mid-December, that is. Okay, thank you so much. Have a nice evening, everyone. Okay, bye.
Nick Nikolenko, resident of Lompoc, neighborhood activist. So, since the last meeting, there's been yet another death in this community, another death that has shocked this community untimely and under suspicious circumstances. How many have there been this year alone? It is time for us to get serious about the level of violent crime within our community. It is time that we do something as a community to combat this uptick of violence. City residents do not feel safe in their neighborhoods. They don't even feel safe in their homes, in their apartment complexes. And to me, that is atrocious. We should be able to feel safe in our neighborhoods, in our apartments, in our homes. We shouldn't have to worry about, is somebody gonna drive by and shoot a gun at where we live? Are we gonna, risk getting shot at while taking the dog out, late at night before going to bed? How many more parents will have to bury their loved ones suddenly and unexpectedly? This is a burden on our community. The grief is a burden on our community. People do not want to come to Lompoc because of the epidemic of violence in our community. Businesses, corporations do not want to come to our community. Families don't want to move to our community, and they think they can't have a better life here. This is a beautiful community. The people here are wonderful. I moved here from Santa Barbara over 10 years ago, and I would not take a second of that back. This community is a blessing. We need to show everybody who lives outside our community what kind of community we truly are. We need to get a hold of what is happening and get these crime rates down so that companies and corporations and families feel like they can move to Lompoc and be successful and they can be safe. One more family burying their loved ones would be too many. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jill Anderson, co-founder of Shadows Fund, also vice chair of the Animal Services Advisory Council and a member of the Stray Task Force. First of all, thank you for putting this on today's agenda and for inviting Director Aguilar and having this conversation. It's an important one to this community, but it's also a very timely one. As those numbers showed, we are in sort of a state of crisis, and it's not unique to Santa Barbara County or Lompoc, it's nationwide, but we're feeling it a little more heavily here. I'm deeply entrenched in this industry, and so, in nearly 15 years, this is the worst I've seen this. The number of pets being surrendered, the number of families in need of help is unlike nothing we've seen. And it's not something, as I think Councilmember Ball and Mayor Osborne suggested, it's not something that any one of us can solve alone. Animal Services cannot solve it, the nonprofits cannot solve it, cities cannot solve it. We have to work together as a community to solve a community problem. I was really heartened to hear Mayor Osborne mention going into schools and other places where people gather. That is something we're really focusing on the Stray Task Force, looking at where we can reach people at the churches, at the chambers, at the rotaries, at the clubs, anywhere folks are already gathered, to come to them and educate them about what's happening and how they can be part of that solution, because I believe they want to be. And you know, one of the things those numbers did not show that I just want to point out is that Animal Services provides their contract cities with a service, but they bring a lot to the party with them. They bring nonprofits like Shadows Fund and Care for Paws and CAPA and the Animal Care Foundation and Canine Pals and so many others who provide just an enormous extension of services to help members of the community. Councilmember Starbuck mentioned other costs that people incur, like licensing and rabies and spay neuter and things like that. In this county, those services are available to people at low or no cost frequently and readily because Animal Services has such robust partnerships. And so continuing to work as a community together is important, and I feel for the first time since I've been doing this under the leadership of Director Aguilar, we have someone at the helm of Santa Barbara County who not only encourages that, but is right there with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. All right, seeing no one else rise and no one call in, we will close oral communications and bring it back to the agenda. Item number 6 is public hearing for the recovery of cost for abatement of public nuisances at 127 through 129 North E Street via special assessment process, and potential adoption of resolution number 6607, parentheses 23, assessing costs of abatement. And we have our city attorney, Jeff Malave, to make the presentation.
Mayor and council members, this is with regard to 127, 129 North E Street. In October of 2021, the city received a complaint about this property, and when staff checked it out, there was severely overgrown shrubbery and appliances and other types of furniture stored in the backyard that was within public view of the alley. Staff spent a time period of 2 years trying to work with that property owner to clean up the property, but was not successful. The city issued a final notice in order to abate the nuisance conditions in the backyard in June of 2023. The end of June, the city inspected the property, and although some progress had been, the property was at a point where no further progress was being made, and the conditions appeared to actually be reverting to what they had been at the beginning of the complaint. So on July 20th, 2023, City Attorney's Office went to court to obtain an abatement warrant, and what that does is that it allows city crews to enter the property to, we actually used a landscaping company to clean up the conditions in the backyard. However, we obtained that order in court, but when city staff went to the property to begin the work with our landscaping company, we found that the property was already cleaned up and that the owner of the property had done the work to clean it up on their own. So under normal circumstances, we would come to you with the cost bill that included the entire cost of cleanup, including the cost of the landscaping service or whatever service was used to clean up the property. We would ask you to approve that cost bill, and then it would go on the property tax rolls of that property owner to be paid with their property taxes so that the city could recover the cost. In this case, the property owner cleaned up the property themselves. So the only costs that the city incurred were the attorney's fees to go to court and to get the abatement warrant that we needed to do to encourage or get the property owner to clean it up. Those attorney's fees for this case total $1,738.50. So the item before the council tonight is to adopt a resolution that would approve that cost bill and place that amount on the property owner's tax rolls to be recovered so that the city can recover its costs. I'm available for questions.
Any questions of our attorney? All right, seeing none, we will go to public comment on this item. If you would like to speak on this item, you have 3 minutes. You may come to the podium, or you may call in at 805-875-8201.
Hello. I'm the property owner of 129. I live in the back. I received the notice of the abatement, and some other persons were trying to get the issue resolved, but they kind of dropped the ball. I took it upon myself to become compliant with the order at my cost, and I'm asking the committee, the council, and mayor to reject the fees. I understand that there was a great amount of money that I've paid out to get the work completed, and I notified the city that it was in compliance. I'm asking, I have since found out that there are programs that were available to help with these issues, which I didn't know at the time. And I also, have 3 qualifiers for ADA, American Disabilities. I have a mobile issues, low income, and I'm elderly. And I'm asking for a fee waiver or reduction in the costs. And I became voluntarily compliant with the abatement. I'd like to thank you for your consideration, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
So this property owner took the initiative and they took care of the issue themselves at a cost to them. They did it before city staff went onto the property with a landscaping company, and, city staff was going to do the work themselves. So the fact that the property owner took care of the issue without having to get city staff and the city landscaper, whoever they used, I think that should be rewarded. And this was at a great cost to the property owner. This is a person who's, they have medical limitations, and they have financial limitations as to what they can do. So I think that this lawyer fee should be waived because the property owner took it upon themselves to clean up the property, and they dealt with a situation that they've been dealing with for 2 years now, and they did it on their own. So I think there should be some leniency towards the owner, and this not be applied to their taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's James Aaron. I'm a local resident, and honestly, this situation already kind of sucks for her. I mean, I don't think we should make it suck anymore. Let's just waive the fee this one time. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one else rise and no one call in, we'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to council. Councilmember Ball.
A couple of quick things. Who, if we do waive this, where does this get paid from?
Get paid from the general fund of the city.
What's our balance in the general fund?
I'll give our finance director a chance to pull that up.
You round it up to $1 million if you need. It's higher than this bill, so that's not enough information. How much higher than this bill?
You know, we are closing our books right now, so I don't have an exact number for you, but last year, the general fund balance was many millions.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll be honest with you, and this is just my personal opinion. I am extremely grateful to the woman for coming to council and for sharing your story and the issues that you're facing. From the city side, you have to hear from our side, it is frustrating to work for years to try to get something to happen, but I know there's challenges with that. At the end of the day, I agree with what's already been said here. The point is to get the work done and to clean up the place and to make it more presentable, and you put in the effort to do that. So for me personally, if you'd have come up here and been angry at the city and we did everything wrong, maybe that's a different case, but you laid out your case very well. For me personally, I don't see any reason that we can't celebrate this woman's actions and activities to clean up her property. I would suggest if anyone out there that wants to play this game or to play chicken with the city for 2 years, that's not a good look either. But we do, and we should always celebrate someone who's cleaning up their property, their own efforts. That's my opinion.
Councilmember Cordova.
I truly do appreciate the effort from the owner of the property. I do want to bring to the attention, though, that the issue has been going on for years, or had been going on for years. Even 5 years prior, there was reports, and that was prior to 2021. I understand that the property was taken care of, but please keep in mind that the reason why the city has to get involved at some point in time after numerous attempts is because there's danger to public safety and welfare. And so although we want to be considerate to the owner of the property that just came up and stated her case, it's also our job to be considerate to the people that live there. And they're having to live with whatever situation is going on by their landlord. And so I just wanted to bring that up to light, because it's not as easy as just forgiving the $1,700 for the property owner when the issue had been going on for years, but those residents have to live under those conditions as well. And they're not here to speak or say perhaps how many times they asked for help from their landowner. And it seems like there's you know, she mentioned that there are multiple people that have disabilities. I just want to make sure that we're not overlooking the needs of the potential residents as well that are living there, that although this was cleaned up, there may be greater issues behind the walls of that establishment, of that living condition as well, so.
Okay, so I think in this scenario, given the circumstances, a motion to waive the fees is appropriate. But I think we need to be careful in the future that this isn't how the issue is solved. So, as you heard, there are those that will assist with this. Some of them are nonprofits, like Communify, like several churches in the area. They have volunteer groups. So if you receive one of these notices, don't put it on a shelf and ignore it. If you're having difficulties, call to the number that is listed on those letters that says what the issue is. Reach out. We have code enforcement. We have divisions that will work with you to come up with a plan and put you in contact with organizations that will do this work. So I'm okay with making the motion to waive the fee this one time. I don't think it's the habit. I think what we want to do is get proactive and encourage individuals, when you receive these letters, take action. Even if it's just calling us and telling us how difficult that action is going to be for you, because then we know you received it, and then we hear what your issue is, and we can work to identify those partners and those solutions for you. We don't want anyone to have to go through this, and we don't want anyone to have to struggle to meet these needs, whether they're the owner or they're the landlord. So I'll make the motion to waive the fee this one time and say we need to be really proactive about returning phone calls and returning emails when you get these notices and taking action to solve these problems so it doesn't get to this point. Councilmember Starbuck.
I'll tell you, I'm not big on gifting public funds for this. It seems like this drug on, and you counted on somebody to hook you up and do this for you, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have the sympathy for that, but I have the sympathy for the case. So I will go ahead and give you a second, but this will probably be the last time I vote to waive fees on a code enforcement.
I agree. Councilmember Ball.
Well, I don't know, it'd be the last time that I'd vote on it. I appreciate anyone approaching council with their situation, so I think I'll judge that case by case, but, you know, I would definitely support that motion by the mayor.
We have a motion, a second. Any other questions by staff? All right, seeing none, let's vote. And that passes 5-0. All right. Item number 7 is new business. Adoption of resolution number 6608, to schedule a protest hearing on whether to submit the question of discontinuing the public park use of approximately 82 acres, including Ken Adam Park, to city voters at a March 5th, 2024 special election in order to allow for other educational and recreational uses or open space uses or both. Declaring the public interest or convenience requires discontinuing the public park use, and declaring intent to call a special election on the discontinuance. Approval of a reimbursement agreement with Pale Blue Dot Ventures regarding election costs. Adoption of resolution number 6609, declaring the site is exempt surplus land. Did I get all of that?
You got all of it.
All right. Mr. Malave is here again to make the presentation.
Although that was a lot, I'll try to make the presentation short.
Shorter? Okay.
To the best of my ability. Under state law, for any land that is operated as a public park to be changed to a new non-public park use, that requires that that question go to the voters at an election to decide whether the park should be open for consideration of establishment of other non-public park uses. City of Lompoc owns an 82-acre parcel in the north part of town that is located near Allen Hancock College, west of Highway 1, which contains open space and recreational uses, and it contains the area that is operated as a public park named Ken Adam Park. The city acquired this 82-acre parcel in 1984 from the federal government with some restrictions on how the property could be used. Those were amended in 1999, and today, the restrictions that currently remain on the property are that it must be used only for educational and recreational purposes or for open space or for both. The city is currently operating Ken Adam Park on that site. The park features a group picnic area, playgrounds, trails, volleyball, barbecues, a flag monument, restroom facilities, those type of park uses. In the past, the city has considered other uses for this site. Most prominently, there have been a number of space-oriented museum or educational developments that have been proposed for this site. And consistent with the federal restrictions, there could also be other uses that are considered for this site, such as expansion of the college or a library, athletic training, or field, private businesses, or other types of museums or educational developments. At this time, there has been no development application submitted to the city for any type of alternative use. But the city does have currently an MOU with an organization or an entity named Pale Blue Dot Ventures, Inc. And under that MOU, we are undertaking negotiations with Pale Blue Dot to enter into a possible sale and development of the site for a potential space-themed educational and recreational development. The negotiations are ongoing for this project, but have not been completed. We are making progress. One of the current items that's happening with this project is that in April of this year, council directed that the financial feasibility study prepared by the Pale Blue Dot developer be analyzed by an independent financial consultant with theme park revenue experience. And we have that consultant under contract, and we expect that his findings and conclusions will be presented to the city council on or before, well, I'll say in November of this year. Probably November 7th, potentially November 20th. So, conducting an election to consider other potential non-park uses for the 82-acre site would facilitate the exploration of other such uses that are educational, recreational uses, or open space uses, or both, including a possible sale to Pale Blue Dot for their proposed development of a space-themed educational and recreational development. Now, voter approval of changing the park use of the site does not require that the park cease operation. It does not require the city council to approve any other use for the site. It only allows other uses to be established on the site if the city decides that it would like to approve such other uses. The city council will retain full authority to approve or deny any entitlements for any such other uses that might be proposed by developers or private parties. The city would retain all authority to change the zoning of the site and to decide whether to sell the site or to keep the site under the city's ownership. Approval of this proposed election would only remove the restriction that the property must be used as a public park. So, under state law, the procedure for holding an election like this is, first step is what we have before the council tonight, which is adoption of a resolution to set a public hearing for the public to be able to come and protest. And then at the end of that public hearing, the council will decide whether to call the election. And if anyone did come to protest, we're proposing that that public hearing tonight be set for November 20th. If any person did come to protest at the public hearing on November 20th, in order to call the election, the council would need to overrule the protests by a 2/3 vote of the city council, not just a majority vote. So that means 4 out of the 5 council members would need to vote to overrule any protests from the public at the November 20th hearing in order to call the election. Now, another thing is, in order to make the March 2024 election, we would be under an extremely compacted timeline. The county has a deadline of November 21st in order for us to adopt our resolution calling the election. The public hearing that I just mentioned about the protest hearing, the only date that we could hold that public hearing would be November 20th. If we compacted even more, we could go to November 17th, which is, November 20th is a Monday. If we compacted any more, we could go to November 17th, but that would be difficult. That would be a Friday. So we are coming in 1 day before the county deadline to call the election if we were to hold this public hearing on November 20th. And that is just because of all the procedural steps that need to be taken in order to call an election like this. It is, notice has to be published in the newspaper for a certain period of time. Notice has to be posted at the park site for a certain period of time. And then we have to meet the county's November 21st deadline. For all those reasons, if the council is inclined to hold the public hearing to consider calling the election, we're recommending that it be held on November 20th, which would be a Monday. Also before the council tonight is a reimbursement agreement that has been signed by Pale Blue Dot Ventures. What this reimbursement does is it is a guarantee that Pale Blue Dot Ventures will cover all the costs that the city might incur for holding this election, including staff time, the time of any consultants that we have to hire in order to prepare the documents for this election, and the cost of the actual election that the county charges us, which we got an estimate of this year is about $50,000. Finally, the final approval before the council tonight on this item is a resolution declaring that the property is exempt from the Surplus Land Act. Surplus Land Act requires that if the city is ever going to consider selling a property or if the city's ever going to consider selling a property or leasing a property for more than 5 years, that the city must first advertise the property to affordable housing developers to see if any affordable housing developers are interested in the site. There's an exception to that for if the property basically does not allow housing to be built on it, and if that restriction that prohibits housing is not imposed by the city. So here we have a property where housing is not allowed because we have a federal deed restriction on the property that only allows education, recreation, and open space uses. So housing is not allowed. That restriction is imposed by the federal government, not by the city. And so that means we can declare the property exempt from the Surplus Land Act, and we do not have to advertise it to affordable housing developers in order to dispose of the property, to sell it or lease it for more than 5 years. So that resolution is also before the council tonight. So in conclusion, the council's decision tonight does not actually call the election. It is only to schedule a public hearing on November 20th for the public to be able to comment and submit any protests, which if they are overruled by a 4 out of 5 vote of the city council members, council may then call the election for March 2024. If we did not meet these deadlines for the March 2024 election, then it is possible to place this election, this ballot measure on the November 2024 election, which would be the next election date that is available for consolidation with the county. I think that covers it. If the council has any questions, I can answer questions. We should also take public comment on this item, and then it's open for deliberation.
All right. Do you have any questions for the city attorney? So my question is this something that we're bringing forward or the applicant requested?
Well, we are in an MOU with Pale Blue Dot, and in the MOU we have agreed to negotiate in good faith towards considering the approvals that are necessary for their project. One of the approvals, or one of the things that needs to be approved, is this change of use of the park at an election. Pale Blue Dot has requested that that be held at the March 2024 election, and so that is why we have the item.
So that's the date was, Pale Blue Dot asked for the date?
Yes.
Okay. And then this process was identified as part of that due diligence. We had never gotten this far with another project to really recognize that this was potentially an issue where a public park would be converted to private land.
That is true.
Okay. Just wanted to understand the process. Any other questions before we go to public comment? Councilmember Cordova.
During this time that you spoke about with regards to things that we have to meet before we can actually have it on November 20th, is there a CEQA review that needs to take place for the land?
Yes, so we have hired a consultant to do an environmental analysis of the environmental impacts of removing the park restriction on this property. Yes, that does need to be done.
And what's the timeline that they move at?
They've given us a schedule, and they are able to meet that schedule before our November 20th public hearing. Of course, I will say if everything goes as planned, there are always delays that can occur, and there are items that can come up in the middle of a CEQA review that can cause things to get sidetracked or delayed. That often happens, and it delays projects, as we all know, because projects get delayed all the time. If that happens to happen here, it would throw us off the timeline, and we would not be able to meet the county's November 21st deadline. So that is a risk that something like that could happen.
Councilmember Ball.
So just to clarify, you're saying it's not 100% within this council's purview to dictate whether or not that can actually land on.
There's some things that are just out of our control. I mean, we can set the November 20th public hearing, but if it turns out that during the CEQA review, something takes longer than expected, or a comment is made by a member of the public or a state agency that requires more analysis than previously thought, or triggers some additional review under state law, those things can happen. In a normal project, it would just be, few months, a few weeks or a month delay. But here we cannot afford the few weeks or month delay that might happen with a normal project, and we would just have to, we wouldn't be able to call the election for March at that point.
Okay, any other questions before we go to public comment? All right, thank you. We will open the floor for public comment. You have 3 minutes. You may come to the podium, or you may call in at 805-875-8201.
Good evening, Mayor Osborne and City Council members. I would like to thank you for moving forward with this project and taking the next step to hear from the people. My name is Debbie Blow, and a year ago at this time, I had the pleasure of serving as the interim superintendent in the Lompoc Unified School District. It truly was a pleasure. I enjoyed being part of this community and living in this community during that time. And it was during that time that I learned about this potential project. This has so much opportunity, both for this community and particularly for the students and the children in this community. As an over 40-year educator, I'm very passionate about strong learning opportunities for students. And I'd like to highlight just a few of those. This project will allow for around 5,000 students to have a multi-overnight experience where they will learn a lot about science, STEM, and space exploration. It will also provide field trips for over 65,000 other students. And it will have a big benefit, particularly for Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo County, and Ventura County students. In addition to what students will learn in a hands-on environment, really experiencing it firsthand, it's also going to raise the educational program in Lompoc, because it will provide for internships for high school students, as well as some of our community college students with Hancock College. It will also help with teachers. One of the plans is during the summertime to have a time where teachers will actually spend time in the park overnight and learn how to strengthen their STEM instruction, their science and mathematics instruction. I'm just extremely excited about this, and I encourage you to approve this so that we can move on for a great project for our community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeanne Korb. I'm a resident of Lompoc. I am kind of confused. I think I'm going to need to go home and use my game theory skills to figure out the thing being voted on. There are some important details that I think in discussing the difference of use. In 2019, May 2019, when you approved the MOU, I went down to visit the 82 acres. I nicknamed it the 80-acre wood, and what I found was bulldozed. The whole place was bulldozed. It was not open space anymore. The federal prison farm is farming on it, and they have been for 4 years. Last time I went down there, and they've got irrigation and, irrigation equipment and everything. It's all irrigated. So then I went up to the east parking lot of the college, and I saw building materials behind a fence. And a few months later, I went back, and there's a 6-story building on the top, the northwest corner of the 82 acres. And I don't understand. I talked to people. I talked to a council member, the former council member of the 4th District, and everyone was telling me, including planning, no, that is not the 82 acres, it's federal land. The 82 acres is somewhere else, but nobody could tell me where the 82 acres is if it's not that. So right now you have 2 tenants on the land that are not the intended use. And so it's not being used as a park. You can't get to it, it's all fenced off. By the way, the city bike path was torn up. The prison farm apparently tore up the south hill, the hill that comes down towards the bridge. That's all torn out. It's now just grass with a little bike rut in the middle. So this has not been, apparently you signed the MOU and nobody had the task of going down and putting eyes on it once in a while to make sure that it wasn't being used or abused, which it has been. So this kind of puts a wrinkle in the whole thing. I just wanted to let you know. I have pictures if you want. So thank you very much.
Well, Skylar, I live in Lompoc, Mayor and Council. Make it just short and sweet. Bring it to the public, let us decide. I apologize that it's coming to you so quick and in such a tight timeline, but here again, without timelines, nothing would ever get done. So let's go ahead and bring it to the public. Thank you.
Hey, y'all, I'm back. Hi, my name's James Aranguren. I am a mechanical engineer, a proud alum of Lompoc High, and a member of the first student team to build a rocket and send it into space. And I gotta say, I read Pale Blue Dot's entire 100-deck slide proposal, and the idea of kids having a place to learn about STEM and technology that is this immersive makes my heart warm. And I really want to issue a full-throated support of this measure and this proposal, but I can't, because this isn't the first MOU that the city has been under Pale Blue Dot. It's been renewed multiple times. And there's a requirement in the MOU that Pale Blue Dot raises, I think the figure is $750,000 of seed capital. And these negotiations are going on behind closed doors, so I don't know if they've gotten that yet, but looking through their proposal, the projects that they want to build are really, really, really expensive. The micro drop gravity tower is $8 million. That's the figure that they suggested. That project alone, none of the construction, none of the wiring, none of the developing software for immersive interactive experiences, none of that. And so I am really, really, really hesitant at the idea of changing the way that our city's laws interact with land that the city owns for the possibility that a very ambitious project, which may not happen. So, look, the negotiations are going on in closed sessions. Y'all know more than we do. It may turn out that Pale Blue Dot has a lot more clout than I think they do. But if you don't hold the election, that doesn't stop negotiations from continuing, and that doesn't prevent the election from being held in the future, when the citizens of Lompoc are going to have more information about what might be happening with this land in the first place. So as much as I want to see this project come into fruition, I would highly and strongly recommend that the council reject this motion. Thank you.
Brandon Bridge, resident. I ask that you continue to move forward in working with Pale Blue Dot to allow the residents to help decide the future of the project. Thank you.
Nick Niklenko, resident. This proposal sounds amazing for the community. It sounds amazing. My question is, can we have a public park and this project coexist on the same property? Do they really need the entire 82 acres? And secondly, what is the usage of this park? How is it being used? How often are people going there? Is it going to be a tremendous loss to the community to not have this park? These are questions that should be answered before the hearing for, to decide if this goes on the, I believe, March primary ballot. So there needs to be some more things answered, and there needs to be a feasibility study of this project to see if they can actually accomplish what they want to do with this project. Maybe you guys know more than we do. I don't know. But these are some things that need to be answered before the public votes on this. And I believe that this project can coexist with the park that's already there. Thank you very much.
Howdy, Carl Jones. Every time Pale Blue Dot comes to mind, I just think of Tylenol. Sorry, seems like it's always a headache. But the underlying issue with me is I really think we should get the consultant information first about the theme park, because basically this is a theme park. And then the more I hear about it, it's a for-profit. You know, everybody says education, education, education. For who? How many people can actually in this city afford it? I mean, the amount of money that's going to go into this place, they have to recoup their money. I mean, basically you're putting Disneyland up on the hill. Anybody seen the price of Disneyland lately? What? Almost $150 to take a kid there. You know, that's what you're talking about, putting up there in place of a park. You know, this is a for-profit agency. I think we should get the financials figured out from this consultant. Is this feasible in this area? You know, but the bottom line is, it is for-profit. Okay, we're talking about taking public land and turning it over to a corporation that's for-profit. Okay, that's the truth. You know, so I say, let's get the dollar and census first before we make this kind of decision. They can wait until November. You know, let's get those numbers back from the consultants. Plus, the next question I would ask is, how much are you going to be charging these people to go on your property? Is that good for Lompoc? Can Lompoc afford for my kid to go up on the hill for $200 a day? Maybe even more when you start talking about science technologies and some of the other stuff involved. So who are you actually building this for? Because half the time I don't see it for Lompoc, I see it for some people that got a lot of money around here. But the average Lompocan, not really. But I think we need to find some numbers and census before we start deciding whether or not we turn public land over to a for-profit agency. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Vanderveen. I'm actually a very new resident to Lompoc. We moved here to be with my family. My brother's lived here for almost 20 years with his kids, and we heard amazing things, and we decided to come down here. I actually was invited to one of the investment meetings from Pale Blue Dot, and what I saw made my heart for kids expand. I raised my 2 older kids in Livermore, California, where Livermore National Lab is. And one of the things that I saw the lab do for our schools was provide so many STEM opportunities for them: science, education, math. Kids got to go in and see the NIF project, which was a huge deal, power of the sun in one little dot. They would hold summer symposiums. All the students were invited for free. Other classes and people in town were able to see this also. The things that science community did for Livermore was amazing. They also did an engineering program that was specific to Livermore High School that my kids were actually invited to join, and they learned on a different level of science, math, and technology. Like, their English studies were all technical terms that they would use in science. When I heard about this program coming here, the thing that excited me the most was I have nephews that are in elementary school and junior high, and one of the things that they would love to go do and see is see someone go to the Space Museum that's on Vandenberg Air Force or Space Force Base. They are not allowed to do that because their parents don't have access to the base. And I think this opens it up for the base to be able to provide information to our kids, to the people in town. I know that there was a concern about it being a Disneyland theme park. That is not what I saw at all. And their goal is to make it affordable for all of our Lompoc residents, despite the demographic, despite how much money they make. And that was another thing that was very exciting for me to hear. It is money that will also benefit Lompoc. Like, you have to remember, taxes are being collected, all that money goes back to our city. And I think this is an amazing thing, and I hope that you guys move forward with it. Thank you.
Good evening. Kimberly Coy, resident, born and raised. As far as I'm concerned, Canada Park is a landmark. It's been there my entire life, and I would love to see Pale Blue Dot come in and keep Canada Park. Brownies go there, Girl Scouts go there, Boy Scouts go there. They get their badges. They do all their Boy Scout and Girl Scout things there. And I don't know, I would prefer to keep Canada Park. I can remember when it was changed to Spaceport Park, and we fought to get it changed back. Again, landmark. Thank you.
Kathy Howard, Lompoc resident. As best I understand this issue, and I've been sort of following it over time, and it's kind of complicated. This is just an opportunity for the citizens to say that the city, if we vote yes, that the city council can do what they would like with the land. If they want to sell it or not, that would be up to them. And I think at some point we have to trust that our city council would make a good decision. But I do think that I'd like the opportunity to vote on it. And I think the rest of the city should have that opportunity too, because without it, there won't be any pale blue dot in that park. And honestly, Lompoc needs a kick in the butt, and we're not seeing anything else come up. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Steve Bridge. I think you guys are doing a great job on this. Most of the questions you're hearing today, the concerns, such as keeping Ken Adam Park, you've ensured that there's a large piece of that stays. The finances, I know you're working with the lawyers and going through all of that. So whether you're a proponent of this or not, you guys are doing a great job on that. And I remember the last contentious issue that faced this council we went round and round about having a vote. And so I think let's avoid that this time. Let's just go have a vote. And the timeline, you know, we're as guilty as anybody. Everything takes so dang long that we should push it through the timeline if we can. If we can't, at least we tried. But we've got very little to lose since it's all funded by an outside agency to try to meet the timeline and see if we can get this to the vote. So I'm a proponent of the vote.
Hi, my name is Linda. Thank you for letting me speak. I don't live here, but I actually went to rehab here. So, and I loved the city when I was here. But when I was listening to some of the people here, the pale blue dot, I just wanted to speak out regarding that. My kids grew up in Santa Barbara, and when my kids were young, we kind of looked at the education, and my daughter she was coding when she was in 7th or 6th grade, and I said to her, you really need to go to DP, Dos Pueblos High School, in the Engineering Academy if you want. I said, a girl in a STEM field is gonna rock. And she's 26 now, but the pale blue dot seems similar to like an engineering academy, and we had so much funding from Raytheon and all the engineering companies in Santa Barbara, which I'm sure you could get from Vandenberg and around here. But literally, it's like the kids are our future, and I loved Lompoc when I was here. I was like, oh my gosh, this town has such good like oomph and heart. They just need like this vision, and kids in a STEM field, kids in engineering is so important, and I think it would be vital for this community to kind of put you on a map, because DP, you can't even get into the engineering academy anymore. And my daughter got a $250,000 scholarship to college. Her friends went to Stanford, to UCLA. These girls, we all came from middle-class, hard-working families, and it really helped them to give them confidence and take them to the next level. I don't know much about Pale Blue Dot, but I do know that our kids are our future, and these kids that are learning now, it's like get them into these important growing opportunities where they can absorb and come give back to the community. So good job, Pale Blue Dot, and thank you for letting me speak.
How are you? I hope you guys are digesting all this stuff. I think we got to give a lot of credit to Pale Blue Dot. This is a group that has spent a lot of money, brought in a lot of very talented people, and I think the comparison to Disney that this gentleman made, there's something relevant to that in the sense that Bob Allen, who's one of the lead designers of this project, is an ex-Disney person, deep in Disney. I don't know. If you ask the people in Orlando, maybe with the exception of Governor DeSantis, that if Disney was good for their community, I think they'd tell you that Disney was really a good thing. This project is flexible enough. The team that Steve has assembled are top-rate people, totally impressive. The project can essentially meet the needs if there's changing requirements as it relates to the park itself. They're able to accommodate those. This project will uplift Lompoc. It will make a difference to education. It will make a difference to the tax base. There will be incubators that will come here. The exposure to nationally and being able to conjoin Vandenberg and space with this project basically stamps Lompoc finally in a place where space and technology come together. We've seen that, I think it was on the city emblem, right? That we had the rocket. We used to have flowers. We don't necessarily want to replace those flowers with cannabis flowers, but that may be happening too. The point is, though, this project is super good for Lompoc. It's great for the region, the tax base, jobs, incubators. Everything that's planned in there is terrific. So to me, it's kind of remarkable that Steve has stayed this course this long and continued to raise money and fulfilled his part of his promise, because these hoops are crazy. So please see this for what it is, approve this vote, let the people vote on it, and you still, according to what the city attorney said, it's kind of scary because for Steve, I would think, at any point you guys could pull the plug if you wanted to, which I hope you don't. Thank you.
Hi guys, Randall Senna, local business owner, and I also support the hearing, the first step, and then ultimately moving it to a vote. And those who are naysayers who say for one reason or another that you wouldn't support it, of course that would mean you're in the no vote. But we need projects, and project this big, the no's will take care of themselves. There's going to be a lot of limits. There's going to be a lot of things they won't be able to do. If it was easy, it's just saying, I'm going to greenlight this giant project and it all just happened. I'm sure many people would do huge projects, but the no's sort of take care of themselves. So I would just say, let's move to the hearing and then turn it into a vote. Thank you for your time.
All right, let's go to the callers. Did we lose our caller?
Perhaps they'll call back.
All right, then we'll bring it back to the room until we see if the phone rings again.
Mayor, council people, Nicholas Gonzalez, resident of Lompoc. I would approve whatever is necessary to take it forward to a vote. After all of you here today were placed based on the community vote. So I think it would be very important to let the community have an opportunity to vote on this issue. And then it'll be incumbent upon the applicant to prove to the community that their project warrants being placed here in our community. But please give the people that opportunity to vote. I know several of you argued very much about the importance of the residents being able to vote. So please pass whatever is necessary and allow the vote. As a side note, I just finished watching with my little 8-year-old a movie about space. And I thought, wow, how fitting. That could fit right here in Lompoc. We have a very, very large Latino community here, predominantly in agriculture, very low-paying jobs. Let's give a group that has long been neglected the same inspiration as we had one of our recent astronauts have. And it takes a lot of courage to stand and hear the no, 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 but do what is right. But we're long due. We're always talking about how we're short economically to do things, and we had to pass taxes on people, many of which are not able to afford a lot of this. We had to raise utilities for the same reason. Let the private market come in and generate the revenues that we need instead of taxing those and increasing fees more on the people who can't. Thank you.
Council members, thank you for the time. I'm Steve Frank, so I'm that horrible pale blue dot guy. I'm the founder and the CEO. Let me just try to clean up a couple things on some of the questions that people probably have asked, and you probably have questions for too. So the bogey for us was to raise $750,000 by the end of September. We're now up to 1.1 million. So far, and we're pretty confident we can keep going. There's been a lot of work done. Many thanks to the city and the city attorney and all the people that work with him that have contributed to get us to this point. It is very complicated. We are as far as I think you've ever gotten on solving this riddle. This is focused on STEM education. It's 65,000 kids that come here, get on a bus in the Central Valley, come out here, and then spend all day and then go back home, and then it's another 5,000 who will stay overnight. So, and you know, there's underrepresented communities that for some reason drop out between kind of 4th and 7th grade, don't take the right courses. If we can get those people, you're really right, they really will rock, because there's great opportunities in this business, and we want to entice people to get into that business. We will apply California science standards, California standards for science camps and facility. We will have special events in kind of an amphitheater. That's a bit of a strong word, but we'll have a place where the flagpoles are, where people can kind of come and watch events or be music. We think property values are going to will go up. We'll spread the utilities over a wider base, because we'll be one of the biggest businesses in town. It's about a $40 million business. It's about 250 to 325 jobs. And we'll make improvements to Ken Adam Park, where there's, that piece of property is about 82 acres in total. We'd think about 40 acres is unusable. It's got that big, deep ravine there. Can't do anything with that, can't build in it. So, and then, where the oak trees are and the barbecue pits, a lot of that's gonna stay. So you'll see all this. We'll have to run a campaign in kind of January through March and convince people like yourselves that this is a project worth getting behind. So I hope I've answered all the questions. If there's more, originally, remember, this land was originally given from the Army, eventually got to Lompoc for the Western Spaceport Museum and Science Center, and that's kind of what we want to build. Thank you.
And we'll also get really thin and be more attractive. What's been so heartening listening to everyone is how much we care about our kids. What's ironic is that we're unable to pass a school bond, so we can't care that much about our kids. And if you are really excited about this project and STEM and helping our kids, remember the next time the school bond is up, because that will help our kids too. I know some of you own quite a lot of property in town, or at least deal with property. So the one rule is never sell the cow, right? So you are gonna do you and take the vote you've already taken in your head, but just don't sell our property. Lease it to them, rent it to them, never sell the cow. And only 2 of you were actually really elected, just to remind everybody. Running unopposed, I don't think is actually getting elected. Have a great night.
I'm Linda Lee, and a Lompoc resident since 1981. It seems to me that there are risks entailed with approving this resolution and having the vote in March. But if you deny this resolution, we can still have a vote of the people for this supposedly really worthy project, only it will be in November. So I would urge the council to let the public have time to fully examine this issue and not run into possible problems having it too early. People can have their say in November just as well as March. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one else rise and no one else call in, we will close public comment on this and bring it back to council for discussion. All right. Councilmember Ball.
Well, let's not be shy here. I think this is a great project in a vacuum. I'd love to see it happen. I'm not convinced yet that it's feasible, and I think it's fair for the community and for its citizens and for the people interested to figure out whether it can actually come to fruition. Totally realistic. I'd love for this to happen, but I'd hate for there to be something that never started, we all committed to, and again, something failed. So it's reasonable for us to have a decent amount of time to make sure that this is feasible. I think that's fair. Somebody brought up voting. I do remember, I was there. It was 2015, 2016. I'd come and sit in the back where some of you are sitting, and I'd be irritated at the person sitting in this chair because people were begging. People were begging to vote on sales tax. We needed the revenue. We needed it. And we waited another 3.5, 4 years until the public got a right to vote on something. So let's remember the history on that. I then disagreed with that approach, and no matter what I feel personally about this project, I will always support the right to get this in front of the people of this community to make the decision, because it's fair. You elected us to be here. You should be in charge of deciding whether something is reasonable or not, or whether we should make or potentially sell the cow or lease the cow. We need your input on that. So for me, no matter where it lands, whether it happens sooner or later, I support getting this in front of the people. Now, I am a little concerned because Lompoc has a tradition of low voter turnout. And the March deadline scares me a little bit because there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered yet. We need to know some information. So again, I'm curious how it seems that we've made several extensions over several years here to keep this going. That's totally fair. Then all of a sudden, we're going to rush to get this done because it has to happen yesterday. That's fair. That's fine. I still am not seeing the justification for that because I don't know if I, as a council person, in the next few months is going to learn enough, much less somebody that has to have everything going on in life and figure out how to vote for something in March on this issue. Will they know that they're voting to get rid of a park and something, or are they going to think they're just voting yes or no on the project? There's a lot of education that has to happen for all parties. Now, going back, I would love to see this happen. I support this project in a vacuum. We have to be convinced that it's feasible. And this council has been eternally patient. I appreciate everyone's history on MOUs. Go look how many times this council made an extension. We have been patient. So please remember that, and don't just come to us and say, you need to do something yesterday. We've been here waiting. We've been here patiently waiting, listening and learning, and I continue to be here listening and learning, and I hope to learn as much as I can by March. If this council thinks that they would like to put this to the voters by March, I'll support that. If this council thinks that it's fair to have a few more questions answered and then have the vote in November, I'm okay with that too. Should be up to you.
Councilmember Cordova.
So I think no matter what, the vote is going to go to the public. The public has the right to vote on it. It's our park. Everybody has a say-so in it. I'm not a fan of the gun-to-head move to get this in the next 20 to 30 days, as the city attorney said. I would propose that we agree to allow it to go to the voters in November, and given the opportunity for the consultant to come back, to get more information, to get everyone educated, and then if you want to give away your park, you can do it in November. That's my motion.
I will support that motion because I think that going to the vote is absolutely right, but I don't have enough information to make a good decision yet, and I know that the public needs that time to do it. So I would support your motion to put it to a vote, but at the general election so that we have all of that information. We have a motion on the floor. Are there any other comments or questions from council members?
So Mayor, just to be clear,
Yeah.
the motion is not to have a hearing on November 20th this year to call the election for November next year. It's just basically to table this, and then
Table this.
when it's time to bring back the hearing for November next year, we will bring it to council.
Right, and in a more timely, with more information, that way it's not rushed, and we'll have gotten through sequence, see if there's any red flags.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so it's to table this, bring it back for a November election discussion. That help the city clerk? Okay. You guys can figure out the timeline because you know what needs to go on where, so I'm not going to give you a time because you'll bring it back in a timely manner so we're not rushed. Okay. Staff has asked clarifying questions, clarified the motion. Seeing no questions, let's vote. And that passes 4-1. All right. We are pulling the tour of the new fire engines till the November 7th meeting. So we'll bring it back to written communications. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications?
No, ma'am, nothing.
Thank you. Now's your chance for final oral communication for the evening. You have 2 minutes. If you would like to speak, come to the podium. If you would like to call in, the number to call is 805-875-8201.
Council, Mayor, thank you for tabling this until the general election in November, because there needs to be more time, more research. The people need to know what's involved. So putting this off for the November 2024 election will get more people voting on it and will allow time for more information to come about. Also, we need to get a handle on crime. If we're going to have this come to our community, we need to get crime under control. And secondly, thank you for whoever got the negotiations for Lompoc City Animal Services, the animal shelter here in Lompoc, to become full-time. The city deserves it. In the past month, I've helped 2 stray dogs be reunited with their people. I've made it my mission since I lost my dog a year ago to being hit by a van in my parking lot. So when I see stray dogs, I'm gonna try to help them get home, because I would hate to see what I went through happen to somebody else. And let's get a handle on crime. Thank you.
Hi, Leah from Lompoc. I'm usually up here pretty cranky, but I had a really positive experience with Lompoc Police today. There was somebody in my neighborhood, and this is just awful to say, but I live in a really nice part of town, and there was somebody who I felt shouldn't probably be there. And the police who responded were so nice. They were really patient and kind with this person, and, allowed them to move along with dignity. And so there's got to be a balance between defund the police and give all the armor we want to the police. So you guys are doing a tough job today. You guys protected and served, so thank you.
All right, seeing no one else rise and no one call in, we'll bring it back to council, and we'll start with Mr. Starbuck.
No reports.
Councilmember Ball.
Just want to report, I was invited, I think the mayor was out of town, so thank you for the opportunity. I was invited to go to, Good Sam was putting on a Recovery Day event at the little event center over on, I think, B Street. But it was really, it was my first time to experience that, and I heard from a lot of, not from a lot, but there's a few people that made some very passionate speeches about their recovery process, and it just was a reminder there are so many people in our community that are dealing with addiction issues and are really trying to fight a fight. And I was so thrilled, all the service providers that were there, supportive, talking with each other. Specific shout out to the group that's part of Good Sam, but is working with laser focus on improving the lives of homeless veterans. It's a very challenging situation, but they're actually getting stuff done, getting people moved from the riverbed and from homeless situations into some sort of housing. And instead of just dumping them off and leaving and saying hope for the best, they're staying engaged. And there's a lot of work here to do, but I just want to give a shout out to those service providers that are trying and that are working harder than ever together to try to work with some of these problems. So it was a really good experience, and I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for attending. Councilmember Cordova.
No report.
Councilmember Vega.
I'd like to thank the audience, for staying there and paying attention to all this. It's been a lengthy meeting on a couple of long subjects. Stay positive, people. We have a lot of negative energy out there that think they know better and they don't want anything for Lompoc. We do. We do want things, and we want to put families first. My vote has always been to support the people that elected us. Most people follow, and they're members of larger entities that they're always saying no. Don't be like that. We need some help. So thank you for showing up.
I attended the League of California Cities Annual Conference with Dean Albro, our city manager, last week on behalf of City Council. Brought back some really interesting ideas, concepts. I've been passing them off to the different staff and departments for them to explore and hopefully bring back some ideas that we can not have to reinvent the wheel. It's always interesting to go and see what other communities are doing and what solutions are out there that we can potentially implement here. So thank you for that opportunity. My regular Santa Barbara County area government meetings, I attended those last month. Thankfully, it wasn't too heavy of a meeting month, but because I normally am at like 12 meetings a month, so this was quite light. I will be attending the NCPA annual conference. As I said, it's Public Power Week. We own our own power. As a result, we're members of Northern California Power Agency, and that annual conference is happening this coming week. And a couple of things. The gentleman that got up and suggested we have a microgrid. Well, it's interesting how good ideas happen at all the same time. If it's a good idea, more than one person's had it. So as part of our grant with the federal government to research our ability to support the base, one of the things that was identified was we should have our own microgrid. So we're already exploring that. We're already having staff do feasibility studies and research on that because it would allow us to be a sustainable community, given we already produce our own power, bring it to the community, but we're not storing it. And we're not building resiliency, and part of us supporting the base is being a more resilient community in and of ourselves. So it is part of the next phase that we're looking at. So great ideas come from many places, usually at the same time. For those that are confused about the 82 acres, the land that you see that has been mowed and farmed actually belongs to the federal prison. That is not part of the 82 acres. That belongs to the city. The tower you see is part of the Hancock campus for the Public Training Safety Center. That is part of the original larger acreage that was part of this deed, but we have transferred that to the college that built that. So the remaining 82 acres that exist are Ken Adam Park. When you pull in, there is the Ken Adam Park where the restrooms are, the picnic area, and then there's a rolling hill area that you heard Pale Blue Dot speak of, about 40 acres is rough terrain. It's hiking trails, and then it goes up to the other flat area which has the flags that you can see as you come in and out of town. So the 82 acres are still intact. They are still maintained. It is a little more rough. As you said, it's sort of the 82-acre woods. It does still exist. It is there. And what you spoke of are areas that either aren't in the 82 acres or are part of earlier phases where we have transferred the property to educational purposes that are benefiting our community. So don't want that to confuse anybody. Those 82 acres are intact and very usable, except for the portion that got burned a couple of months ago. It's made it a little less enjoyable to hike. And I will say, again, reiterate, Councilmember Vega, thank you for turning out. It's really important that you all attended and spoke and shared your concerns. It makes it easier for us to make a decision when we hear directly from you and we're not working in a vacuum on behalf of our citizens, but to hear directly from you. We will adjourn this meeting to the next Lompoc City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m. on October 17th, 2023.